It's Jeff Victor Ross, show number 214, recorded on May 29th, 2018. And things a little odd tonight. We were waiting for Tim. He had an emergency phone call right before the show started, so he's going to join us in progress. So while we wait for Tim, I want to talk about two little things in Lightroom. If you're an experienced Lightroom user, you probably already know these things. But maybe for the beginner, this will be something that you haven't used and it will be helpful. So let's look at these photos. I intentionally have this one here. Let's get rid of that. This one here of these bluebirds that is grossly overexposed. And the one right next to it, which is much closer to being proper exposed. Please ignore any, composition or focusing or anything about that. That is not the issue for these two photos, but let's look at let's do this one first. Another one, grossly overexposed. So in the develop module, really easy. We're just going to make an adjustment to the exposure to bring that down to be a little bit better exposure. And now it's even more obvious how out of focus that was, but you get that. And now that you've done that exposure, let's say you've done anything else you wanted to do here to other items in the, well, actually, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go, and I don't have my keyboard, crap. We're going to change the blacks. We're going to add a little bit of black. We're going to add some clarity, and we're going to add a little bit of vibrance. So, okay, so we got minus 2.04 on the exposure, minus 13 on the blacks, plus 16 on the clarity, and actually plus 16 on vibrance. Nothing special about those at all, just what I chose to do this. And if we go to the next image and we hit this button that says previous right here, you can't see my mouse, but it's this little button over here on the right hand side. It says previous. You hit that button and it's basically going to copy whatever changes you made in that previous one. It would do any cropping or anything else you did. So it actually copied over exactly 2.04 minus 13 plus 16 plus 16 on those four things we changed. All right? Really easy. And something that if you do a series, like I see Nancy out on Facebook, if you're taking a series of photos of at a sporting event or at of wildlife or anything, taking a series, you can get, sometimes maybe, especially if you're doing them really fast, I think this camera will do 9 frames a second. You can make your changes to one, and then as you go to the next one and the next one, you can hit, the previous button, and it will copy over whatever adjustments you made. And that may be fine in and of itself, where you don't have to make any other change, or it may be a good starting point where you can make some other changes. Now, if you were to skip and go back, like if you skip ahead a photo and then try to come back, it won't work. So it's whatever changes you had in the last one. So that's very useful. Now I'm going to show you another thing. So let's reset both of these images back to their horrible exposure. And let's say I'm just going to fix the exposure. So I'm going to go back down around 2 again, minus 2 or 1.96. And all I'm going to do here is match the exposure. Okay. So I'm going to go up here to settings, and I want a Windows PC, so it may be slightly different on Mac. On a Windows PC, I'm going to go, I got to select 2. Let me get my keyboard. Can't do this without my keyboard. Because I can't. All right, so I'm going to select the other one, and whichever first one I chose, that's the base image, okay? Now I'm going to go up here to settings, and I'm going to go match total exposure. It's going to change that second one. In this case, they were really both equally overexposed, so it's also 1.96. But now watch, I'm going to do this one. We're going to do this one as the match. This one is unadjusted. You see that, how there's no change to the exposure because this one was exposed properly. So let's go to this one. And I'm going to choose this next one. And I'm going to say settings, match total exposure. And you can see it didn't make a huge change. It didn't add the 1.96 over. What it did is added plus 0.04. Don't get confused by the minus 1.96 and plus 0.04 somehow equaling, if you took away the minuses and pluses, 2, because that's just a coincidence. What it's doing is matching the exposure between these two images. One that was grossly overexposed, one that was much closer to being exposed properly, and it just matched the two exposures. That is can be very useful if it in another thing. Let me show you something else. Let's go back. So I'm going to go to this image again that's totally grossly overexposed. We're going to bring it back down to minus almost 2, minus 2, yes, 2-ish. And I'm going to change other things. Highlights, don't worry about if these are not actual things you'd want to change. Clarity, this. So now if you remember the previous, hitting the previous button would copy all those settings over, right? I'm going to select the other image. I'm going to go to settings, match total exposure. Do that. Now let's look at the second image. Let me know if you have questions, although I'm not an expert in any of this. Again, all that moved over is the exposure. None of the other adjustments did it move over, did it change. So situations where you might want to use both of those, and if you look at these images here, they're all very, very similar to the exact same exposure. I took them pretty fast. But I could change one of them and to exactly where I wanted it, and then copy them over using that match total exposure. I tend to use the previous button much more often, but if I went to this one, which was 1.96 minus exposure, and then went to this one and said previous, look what it does to it. That wouldn't work there because it's going to copy over exactly what I had, that minus 1.96 and all the other individual adjustments. For me personally, I probably would just adjust those two separately and then use previous. Because the previous for me is a fast way to copy those things over. You just have to remember that if you move ahead, so if I go to this one where I've not done any adjustments, and then I come over here to this one and hit previous, it didn't do anything because it's copying whatever I had on this one. Now, if I go back one to where I have adjustments and then go forward and hit previous, it copies whatever the previous image I was clicked on and edited. So you don't have to go to the very next one to do that. Where that can trip you up is where you move ahead to one and you don't make adjustments. You go, oh, no, that one's pretty good. I don't need to hit previous. And then you go to the next one and you hit previous and nothing happens. So it's not a fix all and you don't have to pay attention. You still got to pay attention to what you're doing there. So those are 2 quick tips that will help. I use previous all the time as a good way, especially with my sports images where I'm hitting a bunch of rapid fire, not just motoring through it, but I might hit 3, 4, 5 frames at a time before I move on to the next thing. And then when you're looking at them here, I don't always keep all those frames, but if I do, I might want to make the adjustment to one and then copy them over, and that's really good. And I typically am doing more than just exposure. I'm doing a lot of the other things also. But if you have a whole series where you've slightly overexposed, slightly underexposed, or want to change the exposure, and you want that as like your base, you can work on that one and then copy them over, especially like where I was showing you there where one was really overexposed and one was closer. You can get the exposure right on maybe the better one and then copy it over to the bad ones. So I could have done that in reverse. Anybody ever use either one of those? Match total exposure or the previous? As I waste time waiting for Tim to get done. All right, Tim, so this is up the alley of what we talked about a number of times here of cameras getting messed up, taking photos of a rocket launch.
Yes, I saw this the other day as well.
Yeah, and this one's a little bit different. This is a very famous NASA photographer, somebody I've actually chatted with to try to get on the show, and it just didn't work out. But Bill Ingalls, if I say his name right, had this. He doesn't say them. Oh, he does. A $3,500 Canon 5DS with a good L lens on it, where he was taking a photo of rocket launch down there, and it melted the camera, as you can see. Look how this is just completely melted. And I'd be worried. All right, I just wasted $3,500 plus the camera. I mean the lens. Where I'm able to get any of the photos off, because did the card get damaged?
No, I thought he did get some pictures off of it.
He did. So that was,
yes.
Just a hypothetical question.
Oh. I remember reading this.
Yeah, he got images off there. So he got this image, and then he got, right before he died, he got that image there. And the thing was, he was a quarter mile away from the launch.
Mm-hmm.
So much closer than anybody would stand, but a quarter mile away, you wouldn't think the camera would melt. It actually didn't melt from the exhaust. It melted from the fire and the brush that the exhaust started.
Correct.
Yeah, but hopefully he was able to do something with some of these images that makes it worth the loss of $3,500 plus.
Right, and I was reading an article about it that he may not have insurance on it either. I would imagine you're not getting insurance when you're putting your camera this close up against a rocket taking off, even if it is a quarter of a mile away. And I think he had said he had multiple other cameras at the same site that were much closer that weren't damaged. So
because this just happened to be in a spot where the brush caught fire and
correct,
and melted the camera. It does make you wonder if he did have insurance, whether it would say, nah, you can't go doing that. But I don't know. Maybe he has insurance to do it. If you don't follow Bill, check Bill. It's Bill, Bill. INGALLS.
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 Yeah, Bill Ingalls.
Yeah, he is a famous, NASA photographer. Lots of great images. If you've never checked him out, check him out and some of his incredible photos, including the ones he got from this shot.
Now, is he a photographer of NASA specifically?
That I don't know. I think he has worked for NASA or works for NASA. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
the question, I guess, and whether he may not even be his equipment. Who knows? I
don't think he's just a NASA buff. I think he's actually has some official affiliation there, but I did not find that information out for this show. So sorry. All right, that's my first one. Let's do your first one in the list.
Oh, you're going to go with that one, the one that I wasn't totally ready for, but
you pick then.
I have a printout of it so that I would go through it.
Do you want me to do that one? Or
Sure. Yes. 16 crucial items that is a photographer, not me, takes on every photo shoot. And I thought it was kind of interesting. Now, some of them may not be for everybody, but he uses a headlamp, which if you really think about it, this is I watched was an Amazing Race, and you see a lot of the contestants will have these headlamps because it keeps your hands free. And you think, depending on the type of photography you do, you might be looking even in your camera bag and you can't see something. This will give you the opportunity to have it directly in front of you, so now you don't have to go hold with a flashlight in one hand and at the same time looking for everything in your bag. So this is a good idea. Tell me you have one.
No, I don't, but I think what would be...
That is not your camera bag, is it?
So before I answer that question, I think what would be interesting with this story, because some of these things are like, what the heck, that are on this list. I think what would be interesting is for you and I, and maybe anybody out in chat, to say, all right, here's this person's 16 items. You don't have to give me 16, but what are some of the things that you always want to carry in your bag? And yes, this is how do we get this where you can see it? This is my camera bag. It is a shoulder bag. It is an old film camera bag that my father-in-law gave me. It even has like film the
Oh
little
yeah, the
holders for
canister
film
holders.
for the
Yes, I
canisters.
remember those.
So
A lot of people probably don't remember them, sadly.
you might be asking, why the heck does Mike have this junk bag? I can't find another bag I like. I have a backpack that I use
So do
for
I,
my
and
drone.
I don't like my backpacks.
We have one for my drone. I got that Think Tank Airport Essentials that I'm going to take on the flight later in the summer, and it's nice. But the one thing with this one is I can fit both my 70-200 and my 120-300, which is a massive lens, and at least one DSLR, and maybe even a couple other things, all in this bag. It is heavy as crap when I do that, but I just can't find one I like more than this one. I can't say I really love this one, but this one has been, nobody looks at this and thinks I got great gear in it. That's one. But it's been through a lot of weather too. It's been in rainstorms, and once I zip it up and everything, it's pretty well protected. So yes, this is my bag.
Now, and do you remember? See, and now I go back a long time with film. Now I remember the translucent film canisters, or the black canister with the black plastic canister with the gray top. But do you remember the metal screw ones?
Nope.
I think they were probably aluminum.
I don't remember those.
Yeah, that my father used to have them, and those were great. He wound up using it like to store little screws in ultimately, but they were little aluminum canisters that screwed on, and they kept the film inside of it.
Okay.
All right, so going through the
yes.
list, and probably go relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Hand warmers, depending on the time of the year. Obviously, I don't think that if somebody living in Florida probably does not need hand warmers. Probably need air conditioning packs instead. Universal phone charger, depending on who's with you. You have different cords. A USB battery pack, which today's day and age is very important. I know I usually have one with me. A screwdriver, because you never know when you need it, and probably to think of it, one of these multi-type screwdrivers that have different bits for it. Medication, maybe something along the lines of Tylenol, Advil, just have those little packets. Protection from the sun, probably can't say this enough. I mean, whether it be a hat or sunscreen, something to protect yourself. Heavy duty garbage bags, which I think Gary mentioned before, garbage bags. So there you go. Bungee cords to hold things down, pen and paper. And as Mike just, and I bought one of those hats, Mike, just for the sun.
It actually has extra padding at the bottom of the bag too.
Pen and paper, which Mike obviously realizes right now he could have just used. Space blanket. I thought this was a very interesting one. You think about space blankets, they don't take up a lot of room, but a lot of times if you lay down on the ground, a space blanket would be perfect for keeping you separated from the elements. Tent pegs to hold down anything that you're using. Spare change, never know. Especially here in New York, you might have to go pay for a meter. Actually, now most of them probably take credit cards anyway versus years ago. But having a little change in your bag so somebody doesn't have to go look for it, you would have it available. Snacks, tennis balls, which come in handy. You cut it in half and it helps. Actually, the way he described the tennis balls, which I was very surprised at, you cut it in half and then you can put markers on the floor exactly where you want the people to stand between. So I was like, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. Or as you see, one of them has a hole in there where you could put something through, maybe a tripod if it's scratching the floor. Yeah. And then plug cubes as well.
Plug cubes. What's that?
I guess instead of an extension cord with 3 prongs on it, it would be a plug that has multiple outlets on it. So it's just a little cube so that you can plug multiple things into it. Because sometimes you get to an outlet and you only have one outlet by you, but you have 3 things to plug in. So this gives you an opportunity, and so it doesn't take up a lot of room. So and everybody has their items of what they like. Some of these I thought were very interesting to have for yourself. I think like the headlight or the hand warmers, depending on the type of shooting you do, may or may not be that important. But some of them, like a USB battery pack, you have to have something like that, or your charger for your phone. Or for your camera itself. Certain things that you need to have, but these are some of the things that he mentioned, which I thought were very interesting.
Yeah, and I don't have everything in this bag because one of the things that most of the time where I'm going to shoot, sports or landscape or whatever else, I'm getting there through my vehicle. So some of the items I actually keep in the vehicle. The spare change, I also keep in the vehicle, not in the bag. I keep a set of knee pads because I'm older. I don't want to kneel down in the dirt or whatever else with my bare knees. So I keep knee pads in there, in the truck, and some other things that he mentions. I have a flashlight there. I have tools in the truck, all that kind of stuff. In the bag itself, I have a little air blower.
Mm-hmm.
I have, you mentioned a pen. I didn't have one here on my desk, but I have a pen. And of course that's no good unless you have something to write on. So I have a little bitty notepad. I very rarely, wow, that's bad. I think it got wet. Very rarely have I ever had to write anything, but if I need to, I have that. I have a little bitty gray card system.
Mm-hmm.
I have some lens cloths. Another lens cloth.
You don't use those pens?
Oh, I have a little screwdriver. Yes, I have a little screwdriver. I took the pin out when I was doing. This is where I was seeing how much stuff I can fit in the Think Tank Airport Essentials bag. I do have the pen, which does that, and then that.
The brush, right?
The brush. So I have all that in there. What else do I have?
And then you wonder why your bag weighs 35 pounds.
Yeah. Look what I have here. 5 Hour Energy.
Aha.
Little napkin. Some earplugs. Some earplugs. I don't know what that's for.
Your wife uses those when you're talking to her?
She needs to use them when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, my wife can use them too.
I have some more earplugs. And this probably can go. I have not used this. Remember this thing, the Expo,
My God, we
Expo
talked
disc?
about, yeah.
This, I don't know when the last time I used this, and it doesn't weigh that much, not taking up that much space. But yeah, I'm not ever using it.
You're not using it.
And then of course, like other people have mentioned, I always bring I bring all the batteries I have.
Right, so do I.
Out there shooting, and generally more cards than I want. You mentioned a hat. I do have I keep a hat in there.
Those are the best type of hats.
Yeah, because I've had skin cancer before.
Right.
On my head, actually. Mm-hmm. And so me covering up, I have plastic bag, so in case I need anything to put in there. And the hat itself, laying it down in the bottom of the bag adds more cushion for that. I have some Velcro. What big thing of Velcro. And I used to have, I used to actually carry that big old gray card that's back here. You can barely see it. You just carry that in there.
Well, you have a big enough bag.
Yeah. Well, I don't need that gray card with the other stuff I have. And I know there's more stuff that I have in the other bag. So what about you, Tim? Anything? I know you didn't have your bag right there ready for you.
No, I don't have mine ready with me, but most of that is what you have that I have probably in there. Really can't think of anything different that I have in there that you didn't mention. I definitely have the cables for phones and stuff, just because I know just charging stuff has always been a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have ways to charge it in my truck, and if I'm going to be out somewhere, I will bring a spare battery pack. Jan mentions breath mints. I have that in my truck. I have gum in my truck. So, I am
Christina mentions extra lens caps. Now, I can't remember the last time I actually lost my lens cap, but I do have spare ones, and I've bought them on either Amazon or Adorama. And then after I buy them, I find the other one. Yeah. But I don't know if I've ever traveled with extra lens caps.
A lot of it's going to depend upon the type of thing you're shooting, because Christina says wet wipes for little faces. That's not something I have to worry about. I'm not shooting little faces, but if you're shooting portraits of people, and especially kids, you're going to want to do that. If you're AD and you're going into risky abandoned places, hard hats like you mentioned, dusk mask, those are great things to have. So it really depends on what you're shooting.
And I think he says, anything else depends on the shoot and depends on the photographer. What are you going to shoot and where are you going to shoot it? Yeah. Are you going to be close to civilization, or are you going to be in an abandoned building where you may not be able to get to what you need, or are you going to be close to your car, your house, or something? So
my truck is almost always what gets me, to the starting point.
Right.
And from there, if I'm going to be going away from my truck for a while, I got to decide what from my truck I need to bring with me. So, I might at that point add those add those, what do you call it, those knee pads to the bag and bring those. But not going to have, if I'm going to be walking away for hours away from the truck. So interesting. Yeah, there's a few things. I don't have a headlamp. I should add that. I need to go back and look at your list.
And I'll tell you, nowadays with these LED lights, the headlamps are very compact. The batteries last a long time. It doesn't take up the room like it used to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Tim, remember last 2 weeks, whatever it was, and you had the 1 in a trillion shot.
I saw it. I knew you're gonna. I saw it. I was gonna put. Gonna put it up there.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away. You had the bird who was catching a shark, who was eating the fish, and there you go with that photo of that. I had to match you.
Yes, and you did.
Yeah, I had to match you with something that I found. Now, I want to give a Fitbit update before we go into that, because I've been beating the crap out of Tim for a long time. He's now beating the crap out of me. He's ahead of me now. So there's a Fitbit update if you wanted to know that.
Yes, I don't know how that happened.
Tim is ahead of me. It's all the rain we're having down here, but I'll get back going before long. All right, back to this. So you caught the I don't know what kind of bird it was, but a bird of prey, catching a shark, eating a fish. So this photographer, and I'm gonna have to look at his name again, was out filming some wildlife, and he caught this cute little fox, unfortunately with a cute little rabbit. But that's cycle of life, is there's cute little rabbits get eaten by other cute little things. Fox running through the area, and with its little rabbit dinner, and then all of a sudden the eagle swooped down and decided to take the rabbit right out of the fox's mouth. And he got this shot of the fox getting it, trying to take it away from him. The fox did not give up right away. It hung on for 20, 30 yards or whatever it was, and the photographer caught another image of the eagle with the rabbit in his claws and the fox still holding on. And then eventually, and there's another shot of the fox holding on for dear life. He finally caught him, this rabbit. And then eventually he starts to let go and drops to the ground. He was not hurt. The photographer saw him walk away, but the eagle did get
I think the fox is lucky he didn't get taken with it.
True. I don't know what kind of lift that eagle has, but if the eagle went up high enough, it could have been the end of the fox.
It doesn't look like he was struggling.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine he comes in at some speed, grabs the rabbit, and then uses that speed he had as part of his lift. Could he have maintained that for very long? But, is a fox smart enough to know, just keep holding on and maybe he'll drop lower? Maybe he won't.
Well, I think that the problem might also be is when the eagle has to land with the fox, does the fox attack the eagle then? And I don't know who wins that battle. True.
In the animal kingdom, they generally do, unless there's some kind of mating or a mother protecting its cubs or whatever, its babies. Generally, in the animal kingdom, they avoid fights that injure themselves. They don't want to have a fight to the death. Humans are kind of the ones who do that kind of stuff. So they try and avoid that. But the photographer did tell us the fox was okay. He fell to the ground. He probably had a bruised ego. But, he went on to fight another day. The eagle got a cheap dinner that someone else caught for him. The photographer's name, let's get up to the photographer's name, give him credit. He's Kevin Ebby. Kevin Ebby, wildlife photographer. So check out Kevin Ebby. It says he was out shooting for a few days ago, where he witnessed a crazy sight. So he was already focused on the actual fox here catching the rabbit. So he was photographing that when I think the eagle came flying over his head and swooped down and picked up the rabbit.
I think Gary has the best point here. He says the eagle flies up 50 feet, drops the fox, and then is its second snack after it corrects its head.
It could very well be. I mean, at some height, the fox falls to his death.
Yeah.
So it is probably good for the fox that he
let go early
and didn't keep holding on. Yeah. But that's one of those things that you don't set out to capture this.
No, you
You're
don't.
set up. He was already taking what looks like gorgeous photos. I mean, he looks like he was set up. He was taking these photos. Had himself in the right position to get some of these, and then it just happened in front of him.
Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So I guess 1 in a trillion isn't so true,
Yeah, it
unless
looks
you're going
like
for the specific.
yeah. And like AD saying is sometimes you see these crazy things and you don't have your camera or you're not set up or whatever. Even you with your
No, because this happens fast.
yeah.
I mean, he said the whole sequence was 8 seconds. By the time, if you don't have your camera in your hand, you're not getting it.
Right. Yeah, you gotta not only have it in your hand, but you got to be ready. And he just happened to already be shooting this.
Right.
Yeah,
shooting the fox, get the rabbit, and then he probably was like, "Oh my god!"
Probably as he's shooting, he's just hoping all this is coming out.
Yeah. Do I have a card in? Do I have a card in?
All right. Which one did you want to?
Let's go to the Sony A7 since 80 is on.
I don't even know if I had that one set up. Hold on,
It's in there. Oh,
it is, but I don't know if I had it ready. I don't even have my keyboard. Hold on.
No pen, no keyboard. You are. I better ask. You are recording.
I am
right?
recording. I take the keyboard off the thing here, so I don't have to have it right in my lap. All right. So another stupid Sony.
Well, I mean, and you know what, the story, I think we've talked about this in the past, how Sony has been pretty much to the forefront with the mirrorless system, and Canon and Nikon really haven't stepped into the game, partly because, and Canon even talks about it, that they didn't want to cannibalize their own sales. Well, the article talks about it, how the Sony version A7 Mark III is now gotten to the point where it has so many features in it. When Canon finally does come out, and they're talking about now coming out with the mirrorless camera, when they do come out with a camera, it can't be that low end camera for the high price that Canon would likely do, because Sony is Canon, Nikon, either or. I mean, they really talk about Canon in this article, but they've made it to the point where the A7 Mark III has just about everything that you would want, to the point it's almost better than their A7S, A7R, which are more specific to either, I think, movie taking and or very low light cameras. So they're saying that really Canon, if they don't come out with something really good, it's going to be falling behind right away from the beginning. And they don't release cameras very quick.
True. Canon and Nikon need to come out with maybe, I don't know if the Pro line is something, but they need, my D500, I don't know if you consider that the Pro line. I think maybe the D5 is the Pro line for Nikon, but it's in that prosumer. It's not the bottom end. It's in that advanced amateur category, whatever you want to call that. I think they at least need to come out with a mirrorless in that category. The one thing that will help out with Canon and Nikon, so even if it doesn't match or beat Sony, feature for feature, the one thing it does for either one of them is it stops some of the bleeding. So right now you have people who, one of our friends who's been on the show a number of times, was almost a co-host for a while with us, Seth White.
Seth White.
Who's been a Canon user forever. If you follow him on Facebook, he just this past week switched over to Sony. He sold his gear. And
he's selling all his Canon equipment.
Yeah. So someone like him Canon had a mirrorless system. Even if it wasn't quite as good as the Sony, he might not have left.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as what Canon and Nikon need to do, because what ends up happening with some of these companies, and Sony's kind of doing it, is they start a cycle of improvements that's happening at a pace faster than what the other competitors are doing. And if you're not careful, you get a full development cycle behind, and then 1.5 behind, 2 behind, and it gets hard to get caught back up. Canon and Nikon need to make sure they don't do that. They have completely fallen behind on the mirrorless side. So I don't know if their first mirrorless needs to be a game changer right out the bat, but they need to come out with something soon. And I've heard rumors, Photokina 2018, whenever that is, I think later in the year or something, I don't know, that at least Nikon may be coming out with theirs. and it will help stop the bleeding. To win anybody back, though, if you want to get the Cess White back, I don't know. That's going to be tough. That's a danger of what's happening right now. Is you're losing customers maybe for life.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. That's what they're really worried about now. I think if Canon comes out with it, they're gonna make it where their camera lenses work with it. But now you're still talking about the big bulky systems, which I think the A7 series, the whole lore to it is it's a full frame camera, but it's also much smaller than what the traditional SLR is.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have, and I know Canon's got a huge, extensive line of lenses, which Sony cannot compete with. Even Nikon has a lot more than Sony, but they're replacing all their lenses in the new line meant for the A7 series. They don't come out with anything pretty much for my camera anymore, and I know sooner or later I'm going to have to bite the bullet and switch. But that's really like a whole new series.
Got something happening there.
My son's came down the stairs.
Oh boy, I have copied over the wrong thing here. So keep talking, Tim.
So I think probably one of the big lines in here was, and I'll read one paragraph. The question is why the out-of-character release from Sony matters so much and how does it impact Canon? In short, this creates a very steep barrier to entry, and the economic cost of entry is potentially much greater now than it was previously for Canon. Releasing something mediocre might be damning for Canon due to the A7 III, and now releasing something significant enough to get the attention of the market will likely cost more than anticipated. And that's where not getting into this early enough is going to be a problem to Canon and Nikon, because they're going to have to release something that competes with it. If they don't, and at the same price, people are going to say, well, if they don't have a camera, why don't I just switch over to Sony? If they do, if it is somebody from Canon, you say, well, Canon's really not trying hard. Right, so they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. So good for Sony, good for me. Well, not really good for me. I don't own any stock in Sony, so I guess it really doesn't matter to me.
Well, you're a Sony user, so you have that vested interest.
I mean, even Gary says out in chat that Sony cameras are really awesome. So I mean, I love my camera. So here we go. You got a lot of people.
All right, I'm trying to find this article. It happens when I may not be able to find this. So let's move on to your next story.
The Lego kit.
The Lego kit.
I had to put my secondary passion into the podcast.
Yes, I won't you explain to us what your secondary passion is, so that everybody knows
I'm very probably about I guess it's now 11 years ago. My friend gave me for my 40th birthday a Lego set, and that one lousy little Lego set put me into a passion of Legos, and I enjoy building Lego sets.
So now you have like 2 Lego sets?
Yeah, I wish. I sadly I could tell you how many sets and how many pieces I own, and you would probably just start laughing. But so,
well, go ahead.
I
Give
think
us
I
a rough
own
idea, like 3.
I think I own 380 sets and 180,000 Lego bricks.
Wait, say that again. You have how many sets?
About 380 sets.
380 sets.
And about 180,000 Lego bricks.
Holy moly. That is.
And ask me where they all are. Man.
They're in that room behind you.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's being turned into Lego world.
In that room behind you. Okay, so the reason we're talking about Legos is
a photographer's promo mailer. So he came
up just showing some different web pages I didn't want to show, but all right.
This photographer, you think about it, everybody sends out or a lot of people will send out a promo kit to customers, and probably more often than not, the promo gets thrown in the trash, never even opened. Mm-hmm. So this photographer decided to come up with a special way of doing it, and he came up with a promo kit utilizing Legos, which included the little Lego set, which wasn't very expensive. I think he said he paid $3 each for it. They probably give or take $1 here or there. And then he, at the same time, he put in a little minifigure and put it into a nice little packaging for the customer, describing what his business was. So this gave everybody an opportunity to see it. I'm sure the vast majority of people actually opened up this package to see what it was. Most people like Lego or any sort of toy like this. Even if they don't, they may have kids, which would get them to open up the actual content that he was trying to get them to look at. And did he get some business out of it? I don't think he actually got into whether it helped him, but the actual.
So what kind of customers is he trying to get? This isn't like senior photos, right? I mean, what?
No,
weddings.
I don't remember if he talked about,
because he's got pictures of cars and looks like
yeah, Clint Davis. So I don't know if it's just him as a photographer, but and what he does for it. But what he even tried to do is he matched the person's personality to the Lego figure. So he got multiple Lego figures and mixed and matched pieces to match the person that he was mailing
so
it to.
he knew the person he was mailing it to.
Yes.
This wasn't like a random mailing.
No, I think it was about 300 of these he sent out.
Okay. Yes. And all he spent about $1,200.
Yeah, which is really not that bad if you really think about it.
Yeah, nobody spends $1,200 on Legos.
No, yeah. Yes, you don't even want to know how much what I have is worth. As I told my wife, my neighbor got a Harley, a girlfriend, and a divorce. I play with Lego.
There you go. It's that's probably much cheaper and much safer for you. Yep. All right. No, interesting story. So I did find mine. I hate when I copy over links and I copy the exact same link, so then I got multiple pages of the same thing. But anyway, this is the story we're going to go over next. I was on Don Komarechka's show, which is Photo Geek Weekly. Mm-hmm. You should check it out if you're into that. Don, who's been on our show a number of times, he did the macro show with us, which was hugely popular.
Correct.
He did the infrared show with us, which is hugely popular. He's helped with some of the year-end photo contest voting and that kind of stuff. Great guy, very, very knowledgeable, really into the technical side of a lot of stuff. So I've been on his show, I think 3 times now. So check him out, Don Komarechka, if you haven't done that. You can check out some of the shows we did with him in the past. But anyway, one of the stories that he talked about that I thought was really interesting on this show was NASA. If you're into, we talked about NASA with the space launch earlier. NASA has sent up a satellite that is going to take photos of the sky, not the sky, but the space. Mm-hmm. So this is the case. The angle with the story is that we all, you and me, Tim, and most of the people listening here, use our cameras to take photos of sports, wildlife, people, landscapes, whatever. We take that, but cameras are used for a lot of different things, outside of this stuff. And this is a case where cameras are literally being used to find new planets, potentially someday maybe inhabitable planets. So what this thing is doing is eventually, you can see here a shot of space where all of those little dots, and there's, and I think in this image, there's 200,000 stars. So, and each star maybe could have multiple planets around it. This just gets unbelievable. And this is just one small piece of the sky. But this thing is going to go in orbit, and you can see the final photo here. After a few years, it's going to have taken a shot from a sphere. I guess that's a sphere. All around Earth, looking out, out there, and going to gather all that stuff. And it's going to take multiples, so that not only do you get the one image, but later you can see if anything moved or changed. So it's going to take that, and it goes in this weird orbit that is, I think it takes 13 hours or something like that. It orbits the Earth faster than the moon, and as it flips around, it's taking photos all the time, and as it comes close to Earth, because there's one part of the orbit that takes it closer to Earth, it spins around, shoots all of its information to Earth, and then spins back, starts taking photos again. So very cool use of cameras.
That is really cool. Yes.
And they don't go into much about the camera. It's not going to be like a Nikon D5 or a Sony or anything like that. I don't think, because there are some things that they have to worry about when it goes into space with all the, the harsh environments of space with radiation wise and all that kind of stuff. So for a camera to last that long, it's really got to be protected and have some special features to it.
And it's got to be lightweight.
Yeah. Why? I don't know. I don't know I imagine they always worry about weight when they send something to space.
Yeah.
But I know on the what is the thing up in space, the space station, they've used Nikons up there. They've used, I think, Canons and Sonys probably too, but they'd only last a year or so before the radiation up there basically destroys them and start getting a bunch of hot pixels. And have you ever gotten a hot pixel on your camera? It can be very distracting. As long as it's just one, you may be able to just clone it out in all your photos. And there's maybe even sometimes your camera itself, you can tell it there's a hot pixel here, and it will, in the camera, disable that pixel, or eventually you send it off to get fixed if it's too bad. I would say hot pixels on this would not be acceptable because every little dot you have to investigate. But I thought that was cool. I'm a big I like these NASA things and these cool little things like this where they're sending stuff up into space to watch this. We'll have this little video go. It's pretty short. What do you think, Tim?
Oh, I like that. I love everything to do with space. And actually, when we go down to our annual Florida trek this year, I'm going to the Kennedy Space Center for a day to do the tour there, bringing my father-in-law. So he's never been there. So I know I enjoyed it with the last time I was there, and I know he's going to love it.
And there's no audio because I never know if they're going to play music, and that's what we can expand.
And then you get gigged.
Gary is we've got two Garys. Gary Croson, late getting to the live show, out taking photos. That's good. And we've had a number of people, Norman and Nancy, who mentioned other things that they carry with them when they, in their camera bags or whatever they're doing. Insect repellent, that's a good one, especially depending on what time of year and where you live. Many times I wish I had brought insect repellent. Motrin, string, gum, that kind of stuff. All right, so that is that. So you had your little Lego thing, Tim.
Yes.
And I thought tonight that for our feature photographer, because I like to go out and find feature photographers. Sometimes it's somebody you may not have heard of. Sometimes it's somebody who you've already heard of, but it's just who I've come across and who I find interesting. And this week, the feature photographer is, and this goes into the theme this week of toys can be fun. Your Lego. And this guy really makes toys fun. And, it's one of those things that if, we've all struggled, with sometimes finding things to shoot. And, what are we going to find to shoot where, it's raining outside or I don't have anything interesting in my area. Scott Norris, who we've had on the show, he is the master of finding things just around his house to take photos of.
Right. Absolutely.
So he gives you inspiration you don't need to go to Iceland to find good photos. Tonight's feature photographer is Mitchell Wu. Am I saying that right? Mitchell Wu?
Yeah, Wu. That's
and
W-U.
where I find Mitchell Wu Photography over on Instagram. And he poses all kind of different toys into very interesting scenes. We'll go through a few of them here. And so, Group Mario Man, that's pretty tame. But here you have, I'm not going to know all these little characters, but you have a dragon slayer, and it looks like a little dragon with X's on its eyes. And he really sets the scene. Here's a Star Wars one. I love what he's doing with the water here. He doesn't provide a whole lot of behind the scenes shots. So you don't see how he's doing all this stuff, but there are a few. He does a lot of Toy Story stuff, which is... I
like that. That's cool.
I'm sure what he's doing with Buzz there is he's hanging him by some kind of string and he's just cloned it out or something.
Cloning it out, right.
That, and I'm not sure who this character is. Thor. It's Thor. And
with throwing a
saw blade. Those look like aliens.
Aliens
doing a little dance. Kermit, and some other frog. E.T. I'm sure it takes them a while to set up each one of these. Oh yeah, there's stormtroopers to do all these, but
aliens again.
Aliens with look like the older one talking to the younger one. Another ET. But who's it? Boba Fett. Yeah. Kermit.
Levitating.
The Incredibles.
The Incredibles. Just watched that with my daughter the other day.
Before coffee, after coffee. I think this guy on the right is at least from Toy Story.
Yeah, he is. Rex.
I'm not sure where the thing on the cliff is, but it's got stormtroopers.
That's the Rancor
from
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Lion King.
Oh, yes, Scar with the hyenas.
Oh, there we go. There's Darth giving a stormtrooper a little push on a swing.
He does have a softer side.
Yeah, he gets very creative. I'll scroll down and see if I can find some others that are really good. So anyway, check out Michael Wu.
That one right there in the middle, Laugh, with the Toy Story. That is actually pretty cool. This
one here?
Yeah. You can almost do something like that with a birthday card with the kid's name instead.
That would really be cool. Yeah, I mean, a very creative idea. If you have kids, you probably have tons of little toys like this around, or not. You can go buy them pretty easily. And it's amazing. He's done a whole bunch of these. And it's just amazing to see all the creativity he's done here with these. It's so interesting. I wish you'd do a little bit more behind the scenes shots. Is that Ant-Man? Yep.
Right.
There you go. There's Ant-Man. Oh, hey, here we go. There's Yoda. With some peanuts. Anyway, Michael Wu, check him out.
I definitely am.
That's our photographer of the week. These guys don't even know we're choosing them, but that doesn't matter. He's already pretty popular, but maybe you haven't heard of him. All right, Tim. I think that was. Did you have any other stories? I think that was pretty much it.
No, I could save anything else I had.
Pretty much it. You missed my Lightroom tutorial that I did at the beginning of the show.
So what'd you go over?
I went over using the match total exposure and the previous button.
So now I'm going to actually have to watch the beginning of an episode.
You're actually going to have to watch the beginning of the episode. And then there's a big lull as I wait for you to come on that I'll have to figure out how to cut out. But let's go ahead and head into the post show. Guys, hang out for a little while. We'll talk in the post show. Until next show, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.